When I was little, my father was famous. He was the greatest samurai in the empire. He cut off the heads of 131 lords. He was the greatest samurai in the empire. He took me with him.
Hey everybody, so I watched the documentary Behind the Curve the other day and I wanted to give you my thoughts on it. By the way, I know that Godless Engineer and Simon Dan have both done reviews of this film. I haven't watched those reviews because I didn't want them to bias my watching or reviewing this film, but I'll be watching them after recording this, and you should too. They do good work and will probably see things from a slightly different angle than I do, so check them out. Links will be in the description. Now, for those of you who don't know, Behind the Curve is a documentary about the science and reality-denying movement of flat Earth theory, which I prefer to call globe denial, since that seems to be the true focus of the people involved. Somehow, this filmmaker gained the trust of several notable luminaries of the globe denial movement, who then allowed the camera crew to follow along with them on and off for what had to be months. It got them to speak very openly and truthfully about their worldviews, and even documented them engaging in experiments. What the Flat Earther participants didn't know, I suspect, was that the filmmaker was going to juxtapose the footage and musings of the globe deniers with footage and musings of actual scientists, commenting on the claims and ideas and the mentality of the globe deniers. This isn't done in a gotcha type of way, but is actually done very deftly, with the scientists speaking very kindly of the globe deniers' intentions and intelligence, even as they are correcting their obvious cognitive errors. The film is not a hit piece, but make no mistake, it hits really hard. But instead of, say, having experts come in to confront and embarrass the globe deniers, the damage done to the globe deniers is inflicted by themselves. Their own words and actions are more devastating than any outside criticism could ever be. Now, I know the power that editing has, and so I have to take some of the exchanges and dramatic moments that occur with a grain of salt. But that being said, nearly every globe denier that utters more than a couple sentences in this documentary comes across pretty badly. There are basically two types of globe deniers they showcase in this film: the talkers and the testers. The talkers are the ones that do mostly that. They talk. They're known for their videos and podcasts that talk up the truthiness of a flat Earth. The testers are the ones that are known for getting out and trying experiments. First up for the talkers is Mark Sargent, the primary focus of this film. Mark Sargent comes across as fairly egocentric. In reality, he's a medium fish in a small pond, yet he fancies himself a whale in the ocean. He tries to act humble, but he does a poor job of hiding the boost he gets from being a star of sorts.
Staring at me. I go, what? She goes, you're Mark Sargent. I go, yeah. She goes, I didn't know. I was like, oh, seriously?
And the attraction of star status is reflected in his view of the world, which he spells out very clearly at the beginning of the film.
In reality, you are actually in a giant planetarium slash terrarium slash soundstage slash Hollywood backlot that is so big that you and everyone you know and everyone you've ever known never figured it out.
The soundstage is not only the place where you create the look and the illusion of reality, but where the show is put on for others, where the performers are, where the stars are. He makes a lot of references to movies because the stars of the movies are the important people. And he shows repeatedly that he has a desire, the need to be important. The film doesn't emphasize this. It mostly frames him as a mild-mannered schlub, but it comes through anyway. The film does, however, knowingly contrast Sargent with Matt Boylan. whom I've only seen a few videos from, and Boylan is shown to be a full-blown egotist maniac. I don't think the filmmakers did anything purposely to show him in a bad light. It's just what he gave them. And honestly, I think Boylan's obvious derangement gave the filmmakers room to show Sargent's plainness, since they had a nut job to sprinkle in here and there. I think the most telling spot for Mark in the film was when he explained his thoughts on why scientists keep up the lie even if they learn the truth. Using his favorite reference, The Truman Show, he talks about how Truman could leave when he learned the truth because he had nothing to lose by going out into the real world. While, say, the mayor of Sea Haven, like the scientists and teachers in our world, has something to lose and is not likely to go out that door. Then this exchange happens.
Wouldn't you say, in a sense, though, like you're now the mayor of Flat Earth?
Now, I only give so much credence to that dramatic pause because I know what editing can do, but it sounds like a real-time exchange, and Sargent is caught in his own analogy. But he doesn't need to be if he's genuinely about the finding of fact and not about what this movement does for him. This is where he has a chance to say, I got in this as a search for the truth, not for anything personally. This isn't about me, and if I follow the evidence and it proves to me that I'm wrong, I will tell the world. I would gladly step through that door. But he doesn't.
If I tried to go, there would be so many people. They would come and say, don't do it. And so I couldn't leave if I wanted to.
That's not someone who's in it for the truth. From Mark Sargent, we get a direct connection to Patricia Steere, as the film pays a little bit attention to Mark and Patricia's relationship, putting a will they or won't they, did they or didn't they, awkward nerds in love type of vibe into the film. It's very humanizing. And I don't intend any condescension when I say that. The film is really about saying, hey, these are people and they deserve to be felt for. Patricia Steere doesn't get as much focus as Mark, but for me, she paints the most tragic picture. Mainly because what little I know about her is how she has been treated by this community she is a part of. The sexism and bigotry that's been directed at her, that she addresses in this documentary and is not abated in the time since this was filmed. She talks about how she's been on the receiving end of the conspiracist mindset of her own community. Accused of being in it just for the money, then being a honeypot to draw men in and mislead them. An odd admission that the weak-minded are attracted to the movement, by the way. That her name, Patricia, was evidence of her being a CIA operative because her name ends with CIA. She's been accused of being a reptilian, and most recently that she's a trans woman, because her community is filled with insecure guys that can't deal with the feels they get, so they have to attack the sexuality or the gender of others in order to make their own skin feel comfortable. And she bemoans the fact that evidence doesn't matter to these folks.
Now, the thing about all of these things is I can't prove any of it wrong. I could and have shown people my birth certificate, my driver's license, photos of myself as a child, and they'll say, well, if you're CIA, all of that stuff can be constructed. People will still say you don't have a real family, that you don't have a brother and sister. There's nothing that I can do.
And the saddest part is that she recognizes that she fits the same pattern of thinking when asking a very important question.
But I wonder if in their hearts, people who do that know they're lying, or are they so conspiratorial that they actually believe it? Then it makes me worry about maybe things I believe in. Am I like another version of that?
Yeah.
But I know I'm not.
And she dismisses her own conspiratorial thinking as different from everyone else who thinks just like her. This is an example of how globe deniers don't have the ability to reflect upon their own thinking processes. She looks out and sees the pattern of thinking that she uses to deny the globe is the same pattern of thinking that is used to deny her being genuine. and she judges the thinking used against her as wrong, but refuses. No, she is unable to see her own methods in the same light. And I think it's tragic that she can't recognize that her thinking is the very same thinking that is abusing her. Next up is Nathan Thompson. Nathan Thompson, he of I Don't Know How to Act Right in a Goddamn Starbucks fame, got a little bit of screen time to represent the evangelical religious aspect of globe denial. Not so much in the biblical sense, though he is very much a biblical flat earther, but in the fact that he carries this worldview like a religion. And I think it was a very good thing to have him in there because so many globe deniers present their worldview like a religion, as he does. When someone goes out and approaches people in parking lots or on the street to talk to them about flat earth, they are being street preachers. That's being a missionary for the flat earth faith. Globe deniers like to say that people that support the reality of the globe are followers of scientism, that science is a religion, but how many people do you see walking the streets asking people, hey, do you know that the earth is rotating? Have you heard the good news of Newton's laws of motion? Have you seen someone driving around in a van with "Where's the dome" written on the side? No, because that's what religious zealots do, not scientists. And speaking of van life, I was so hoping that Brother D. Marble had somehow managed to stay off camera for this collective suicide. Sue me, I always root for the brother to make it to the end of the film alive. But no, he shows up in the last act, and though he doesn't get more than a few seconds of screen time, he serves as a final punctuation mark on a passage about how these people have come together because of a need to escape and a need to belong.
We never really fit in. We find ourselves to be somewhat isolated. And we want to talk to people about this thing, but nobody wants to talk to us.
It's not damning at all, but it's, again, tragic. It highlights the fact that these were people that were lost and alone and had a need to feel important and to bond with others. And that's sad. Not pathetic, but saddening. And that brings me to the professional scientists that were interviewed or presented in this documentary. The filmmaker got good people for this part of the film. The scientists, to a person, stayed away from ridicule and condescension. They recognized the fact that these folks were not stupid, just misguided or miseducated. One of them, Lamar Glover, this gentleman here that looks like me from 1997, had some great things to say that I really appreciated.
So every flat earther shouldn't be held with the contempt, but serve as a reminder of a scientist that could have been, someone that fell through the cracks. And we as ambassadors of science are called upon to do more, right? So scientists of varying degrees of professionalism seriously consider becoming a mentor to someone who is coming from a non-traditional point of entry to the sciences.
Well said, Mr. Glover. As for the testers, there were two main people, Bob Nodell and Jaron Campanella. Their on-camera missteps have been remarked upon many a time, but they deserve repeating here. Bob Nodell, who oddly enough does not call himself a pilot when he mentions his credentials in this film, famously presented a ring laser gyroscope as a tool that would be able to reveal the fact that the Earth was not spinning at 15 degrees per hour.
And if the gyroscope is mounted anywhere on Earth, it's going to drift. In today's 21st century navigation systems, they're using what's called a ring laser gyroscope. It is extremely precise. If we could simply get one of these ring laser gyroscopes, we would be able to prove once and for all that there is no rotation to the Earth.
But when they fired up the ring laser gyro, they got a 15 degree per hour rotation. End of story, right? The Earth is rotating at 15 degrees per hour according to the very premise he set out with. But wait.
We obviously were not willing to accept that, and so we started looking for ways to disprove that it was actually registering the motion of the Earth and that it in fact was registering the motion of the sky.
And this is why I call them globe deniers, because they are about denying the reality of the globe. If their test had shown what they wanted, they would have ended things right there. Wrap it up, boys. We did it. But since the globe passed their test, they look to discredit their test by making up an ad hoc claim that the gyro was picking up the motion of the sky. When the evidence doesn't support their theory, they discard the evidence instead of discarding or at least revisiting their theory. His excuse for ignoring the evidence of the gyro?
Not any one single experiment proves anything conclusively. That's why we're building a preponderance of evidence.
Yeah, the problem is every experiment they do reveals evidence of a globe. They haven't even managed to prove no curvature as evidenced by Nodell's statement here.
At a conference in Raleigh, we want to prove there's no curvature. And if we can do that, it's game over.
If we can do that. If. Which means he knows they haven't done it. In his own words, Nodell shows that he has proof of the Earth's rotation, but doesn't want to reveal it because it hurts their position.
But the rotation is not looking good at this point. We don't want to blow this, you know?
Right.
We've got $20,000 in this freaking gyro. But yeah, if we dumped what we found right now, it'd be bad. It would be bad. So what I just told you is confidential.
Okay, I won't say it.
Yeah, that's no scientist. The last of the testers is Jaron Campanella, and his actions serve as the mic drop of the documentary. He tries two experiments during this filming, the first of which he can't get to work as a test because the laser gets too wide over the distance he's covering, making it useless. The second is a classic globe denier example of setting up a test with set standards that will, in their mind, prove or disprove curvature.
You have a backup experiment.
If you're seeing through this hole, through the next hole, and seeing the light at the backboard or at 17 feet off the water, the Earth is flat. If he's holding it up at 23 feet high and we're seeing the light, well, that's because the Earth's curved. So I should only be able to see it when it's at 17 feet.
And we all know exactly what happens.
Enrique, how high is your light?
17 feet.
I mean, it's as, we don't see you, Enrique. Lift up your light way above your head.
Yeah, lift it up.
Interesting. Interesting there.
Perfect. It was such a perfect final moment to the film that I half expected it to go like this.
We don't see you, Enrique. Lift up your light way above your head. Interesting.
That's my job! That's what I do!
But seriously, he set up a standard of proof and the globe met that standard of proof. Did Jaron accept that proof? No. In a mid-credit scene, it's revealed that he claims to have retried the experiment and got a different result, so the original result can be discarded. Did he actually redo the experiment? I don't know. But what matters is the evidence didn't fit the theory, so he discarded the evidence and kept the theory. This seems to be what globe deniers mean by real science. In conclusion, this film is pretty good. Yes, it's frustrating because it's globe deniers saying things out loud, but it's put together well. It's not an attack piece. It wouldn't have worked well if it was. What the filmmaker did was give the globe deniers a comfortable space to be genuine, and in doing so, gave them the rope to hang their own fantastical claims with. The only name-calling was on the part of the globe deniers infighting. A basic rule of civility is never punch down. And the science professionals in this film never do, which is good, because when audiences see someone punching down, someone big and in power hammering someone without power, they generally sympathize with those getting attacked. This film avoids that problem. So, if you haven't seen it, go for it. Tell me what you think in the comments. Oh, and lastly, and this has nothing to do with the construction of the film, just something I noticed amongst the scenery. Many globe deniers criticize me for showing an AE map as the closest thing they have to a model, saying, You don't get to call that our map. You need to study flat Earth and get your facts straight, Jerry. Well, every model shown in this documentary, every single map, t-shirt, poster, hat, presented by a globe denier in this film was based on an AE map. Every one of them. So apparently that is your map, which is absolutely absurd and proven wrong. And in the words of Mark Sargent,
if you don't make fun of this the first time you see it, there's probably something wrong with you.
That's my job. That's what I do. I don't lose. I win. I win.
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Maybe you came by to congratulate me on last night's victory.